Is it my fault that our first review of the M&P Spec Series did not go so well? Probably. Why don't you stick around and let's see where it goes this time. I've learned some things and made some changes, and I'm excited to tell you more about it. When I was out here last Saturday just shooting for fun, yeah, we do actually do that. It's not all for YouTube. It ran like garbage. As soon as I realized it was loose, I should have just stopped, and I did not. Hey! 50 rounds and no failures. All right. So, if you watched our first review, you will know that it was pretty disappointing, the results that we had when we tested this. We couldn't barely make it through a full magazine without having significant failures to eject and sometimes failures to feed. A lot of stovepipes, a lot of things just not going the way they're supposed to, especially on a rather premium setup like this. And both Smith and Faxon make good products and are, genuinely speaking, reputable. And that kind of left me wondering, is it me? And in my initial review, I couldn't pinpoint anything that made me feel like it was our fault. However, we have learned some things since then that definitely made me think a lot of those issues were, in fact, my user error. And we're going to get into those in a second. All right, so the odds are that it was my fault, and here's why. The comp was loose almost as soon as we started shooting, and that should have been a big red flag to simply stop trying to do that video for the day and instead solve the problem. What happened there was, in my excitement to get out and produce a video on this awesome gun and just to experience it myself, I didn't really do my due diligence of even just some basic reading of the things, you know, the manual that came with the gun, and I didn't know that there's a bit of a process to make sure that this comp is locked on correctly and timed correctly. So huge shout out to Faxon. I actually talked to them in person at the NRA show in Dallas, and I also emailed their customer support back and forth to learn more about their setup. Come to find out, there was a little square card inside the box that had a QR code that I could scan and learn how to properly install this comp. Once I did that, results got a little bit better. So before I show you what happened the first time we came out after I did that, what really was the ultimate problem was the comp was loose and it was impacting the guide rod. So this rod that is inside, that is the guide rod for the whole slide moving back and forth. It has to fit inside the comp, which I hope you can see right there. And when the comp pivots due to the timing being off, because it was loose, the guide rod was striking it. You'll see, I'll put a photo on the screen now. You'll actually see, I wouldn't call it damage, but marks on the base of the comp where the guide rod repeatedly struck it and wore away the finish. As I stated, as soon as I realized it was loose, I should have just stopped, and I did not. So that was totally on me. The guide rod clearly was interfering with the comp. I can see the physical impact marks. And obviously that first 500 round review was not really a solid representation of this gun. Now, for anyone who's watching this and is curious what I did to fix this, what I did was I re-Loctited the set screws, and I thought that was the right way to do it, but it wasn't, as I'm going to find out. But I want to tell you first, we were here a couple weeks ago zeroing this red dot on my tripod, and the comp came loose again, even though I thought it was locked in solid that time. So when it came loose, I realized that the set screws obviously were not doing their job, and checked everything and realized the red Loctite I got was not setting. Now, that was the Loctite that came with the Faxon, this kit. I'm not blaming that, but it seemed that maybe because we ran the gun immediately after Loctiting those screws, that was in fact the problem. It kept the Loctite from setting. Red Loctite is obviously heat sensitive. Maybe that was the culprit. What I ended up doing was I was able to get the set screws out because the Loctite was so, not set. And then I took the comp off. Now, interestingly enough, the comp actually had red Loctite on the barrel threads from the factory. I didn't put that there. Now, that's what Faxon says to do with this comp, which made me think maybe the red Loctite batch was bad. So I actually threw out the Loctite that came with it. I bought a new tube of Loctite. I cleaned all the threads for the set screws and the comp, put the red Loctite on that, and almost immediately it locked up solid. I could actually barely get it timed. The Loctite set so fast. And then I put the set screws in with blue Loctite, which is what they recommend if you want to Loctite the set screws. That, for me, is just peace of mind so they don't back out. I lose them. I don't think the Loctite's going to add any extra pressure, but it will certainly keep them from falling out. So at the end of the day, this is now rock solid. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was out here last Saturday, so like 3 days ago, shooting this gun a little bit, and I still had some issues with it. So I'm not positive it's my fault. I think it still is going to be ammo picky and not like everything, but we've got a slew of ammo here that we're going to test out today, and we're going to see what happens. All right, we've got 115 grain ammo from Blazer Brass. Historically has run well. And then I got a whole shipment of ammo in from Precision One, which I really am excited about. And I'm going to test a bunch of these through it and see what happens. So we got some 115 grain. We've got some 124 grain. We've got some 135 grain competition ammo. And we've got some 124 grain self-defense, kind of just for fun. The idea here is we're gonna run it through all this and see what happens. I had bought some Ammo Inc. 115 grain, and when I was out here last Saturday just shooting for fun, yeah, we do actually do that. It's not all for YouTube. It ran like garbage. We had so many failures but basically like primer strikes that didn't go off. I didn't even bother bringing that because that's just gonna skew this review. And I had Remington 115 grain UMC, which I have previously demoed with this gun and didn't really have any better or worse results. And I know that's not the best quality ammo. So Blazer Brass historically has been a good product for me, and Precision One really makes premium stuff. So I expect that that's going to run right. We've got a bunch of different weights to hopefully find out what this gun actually likes to shoot. So shout out to Martin at Faxon for giving me a ton of info on the comp and also the M&P platform. This is my first M&P. He seems to have run a bunch of them and gave me some information about how the magazines specifically do seem to need some type of break-in. And probably some of that was impacting the results in the first test because it was often having failures right in the last round of the mag. Additionally to that, just in case it was somehow lubrication-based, the problems, I did take the whole thing apart and I lubricated it with Bear Blood from my buddy Phil in Texas. And that is an awesome lubricant that does not creep at all, but provides amazing lubrication.
We'll use that word. Lubrication.
I know my editor is going to make me look really stupid right there, which is fine. So I have it running really, really smoothly. So hopefully it's not that. It seemed to function fine from a movement perspective before, but just in case, more lube is not going to hurt in this case. So if you've made it this far in this video and you like content like this, go ahead and like this video and please subscribe to my channel if you have not. That's literally how I know that you like the things that we're putting together for you. Thanks so much. All right, so we got Blazer Brass 115 grain for the M&P Spec. I've got 50 rounds on me. That's an entire box. Let's see how it does going through 50 rounds of this, all right? Hey! 50 rounds and no failures. All right. All right, so 50 rounds, Blazer Brass, 115 grain, no issues. That's awesome. So I have another 50 round box here. I'm gonna save that for a rainy day, or if this ends up being the only ammo that gun runs well, then at least I know it runs it well and I'll have more for the future. So we're gonna get into the Precision One ammo, and we're gonna start with the 115 grain and just work our way up to 135, and we will see what happens then. Precision One, 115 grain ammo. Let's see how it runs with 50 rounds. All right, another 50 with 0 issues. I am liking what I'm seeing now. 124 grain Precision One ammo. Let's see how this does. I have 50 rounds again. So we had kind of a stovepipe. One thing we've noticed with this setup the entire time is the brass likes to bounce off the optic, which undoubtedly is because the comp is stealing momentum from the slide. So not the end of the world, but it is our first failure of the day, technically. All right, failure to feed. Not just going in. It's in there now, though. That was that slide didn't cycle far enough at all. And we're empty. All right, so 124 grain. It didn't like it so much. Now let's try the 135 and see what happens. All right, Precision 1 ammo, 135 grain competition. I am looking at this as 950 feet per second. My gut tells me this is not going to cycle well with this comp on it. So I have 20 rounds in here and we'll see if it makes it through. Honestly, I wouldn't say that's a problem if it doesn't make it through. It's more just like, hey, this is definitely not the right ammo type, but we're gonna give it a shot and see what happens. Well, I made it to 14 before I had a failure to feed. Another failure to feed. Stovepipe. Another stovepipe. So it seems like as these mags get emptier, we have more issues with whatever we're shooting. I got 2 rounds left. And stovepipe on the last round. All right, so it did not make it through a 20 round mag of the 135 grain. As I said before we started, not really surprised by that. These are pretty light pressure loads. What we're gonna do now is go back through the remaining 115 Blazer that I have and another 50 rounds of the 115 from Precision 1. And let's see if we make it through 100 more rounds without issues at 115 grain. All right, we're back with 115 grain Blazer. I got 50 rounds on me. Let's try this again and see if we can get it to run well through all 50 rounds of the 115 like it did the first time. Cool. 115 grain, 50 rounds, 0 issues. All right, 115 grain from Precision 1. We already made it through 50 rounds of this with no issue. I have 50 rounds on me again. And assuming this goes well, this will be our final test of the day.
What?
Our final test of the day.
Real quick, if you're interested in content like this or social media management, website development, SEO, even paid advertising, and you're in the firearms, hunting, or outdoors industry, head on over to cootsagency.com and check out all the things that my agency can do for your business.
Yeah, all right. So that was 100 rounds of 115 grain with 0 issues between Blazer and Precision 1. So I have actually read some comments on my previous YouTube video, and from actually Sage Dynamics has been running this recently as well. And it seems like everyone has having the most success with 124 grain. For this setup here, what I have, 115 clearly is the winner. Made it through 200 rounds out of the 300 that we shot without any issues when they were 115. A couple different brands there as well. So this seems to be a winner. And I will just keep a pile of 115 grain on hand for when I am running my spec. So now that it actually runs well, I'll give you my thoughts on the platform as a whole. I obviously really love the design. I love that OD green. Who doesn't, frankly? I got this Wesson 507C with the ACSS reticle on it. Not a massive fan of that reticle, but this is kind of just a fun gun, so I'm not super concerned about that. The compensator from Faxon does a really good job of mitigating recoil. If I was a more proficient shooter, I could run this way faster than I can actually run it. I like their kind of flat face trigger from Smith & Wesson as well, although I will probably drop a aftermarket one in at some point. As far as shooting it goes, it's really comfortable to shoot in the hand. It's snappy, but not in a bad way. You can just feel the comp doing its job. And overall, definitely excited to just have this as a kind of around the house range gun. I wouldn't carry it, it's too big for my body, but it's a cool gun to have, and I expect to have a lot of fun range days with it in the future. So thank you for watching. If you didn't yet, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Again, that is the way that I know that you guys actually appreciate this content that we're putting together, and it helps guide me in making more content in the future that will continue to excite you. Thanks so much.